M'agradaria presentar-vos la primera de les ponents, la nostra companya Migle Laukyte, que és una professora agregada i que fa, o la seva línia de recerca principal és Intel·ligència Artificial i Dret, del Departament de Dret de la Universitat Pompeu Fabra. Espero que no m'equivoqui amb res, no? I a més és una membre del grup europeu en Ètica i Ciència i Noves Tecnologies de la Comissió Europea. La Migle ens parlarà amb una ponència titulada Law for Makers, Muses and Machines, de tots aquells desafiaments de la intel·ligència artificial en relació a les categories legals establertes. Migle, quan vulguis. Gràcies.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. I also will spend a couple of seconds to thank the organizers for inviting me. It's a great pleasure. Our department is not here, is not that present in the RAIN Festival actually as the other departments, and I think we can do something about it in the forthcoming editions. And it's a really great pleasure for me to be here. Although it is also true that, well, in the legal department, we do a lot of things related to the movie industry, right? But we somehow didn't manage to build the bridge to come to this festival to become more involved, right? So. And I also wanted to thank the organizers as well, because it was a great pleasure to work with you, to interact with you, Frederic, Alex, and the rest of the team. I think you also gave me a very nice experience to see how you work, and it was also something that I would like to thank you for. So, I'm not the person from the audiovisual arts. I'm coming from the legal domain, and actually today I am. I thought it's a strange place for me to be here. It's a little bit strange for me to start this festival, because when the organizers invited me to assist to the retrospection, so to watch the movies which got to the finals, right? I got so dizzy that I had to leave. Right? So I was thinking, I'm introducing the festival, that makes me dizzy. But then I thought, well, it's also something, I thought that, the organizers have a strange sense of humor, but well, maybe it's also the reason why the law is not here. So, well. Anyways, so I designed my talk to focus on the so muses, makers, and machines, and a few notes before that about how my talk is organized. So I was trying to bridge the law with the cinema, not only the copyright and the normative aspects of it. I was using all the cinema posters to organize the concepts that I'm going to introduce. Okay, so I'm using the language of cinema to explain certain ethical and legal issues that I think are important for us to understand and to share and to talk about and start talking about, maybe, although we have already started and these debates on ethics and law are quite popular nowadays. It is also true that, well, we don't, as usual in ethics, we do not get a proper solution, but the value of the discussion is to talk about it and to listen to the different voices. Okay, so we're talking about the makers, musics, and the machines. And what I think is very, very interesting here for us is that these roles change. Thanks to the artificial intelligence, the role of the maker, the role of the muse, the role of the machine are the roles that constantly evolve, and they are no longer human, right? I think what we see in this, what we have discovered with the artificial intelligence, that the maker, the creator, is no longer a human, can also be not a human being. The muses are also not only human, and the machines are sometimes have could have a human form, right? So the categories shift and the categories change, right? So this is, and on the other hand, we have something very stable, very well established, and very traditional in that respect. So the law, the rights, the obligations, and our need, to have these, and the way the law works, right? There is no shifting, there is no double sense, there are little to no, the law hates these, shifting and indefinition. And of course, in law, in philosophy of law, we do speak about the vagueness and about similar concepts, yet in the law, as we usually understand it in everyday language, these shiftings are not welcome. So in the age of the artificial intelligence, we are changing shifts, right? We are changing our roles, we are changing our ways of creating, and this is when we usually get lost in translation. I think one of the most widely used movies in any PowerPoints is this one. The other one is with Terminator. So, well, we are evolving. Although nowadays I ask my class, I have a class on law and technology, I ask my students, how many of you have seen Terminator? And every year I see that less and less people have seen it, and I start to worry, so I think that I will need to introduce it in the obligatory, mandatory materials. Okay, so we're lost in translation, and this is why we want to talk a little bit also about the myths about the creation, right? So some of the concepts that the creators usually materialize. So the authorship as a concept is usually this underlying idea that the author is always a lone worker, right? The lone creator, close someplace, hidden someplace, while working alone, getting inspired out of, thin air and so on and so forth. But we all know that the authors are never alone, right? There are many things that are helping, many things that are inspiring, many things that are helping them to bring into being what they feel to be that force that drives them, right? So the collaborations, the creative process is based on the collaborations, on sharing, on interacting with different tools, with different people, with different spaces, environments, and many more things, and also looking for the community, right? Looking for the similarly thinking, similarly feeling souls. And this is why, at least from the legal perspective, these interactions are usually well established, well defined. We know who is who, and the teamwork is also divided, who does what. Especially, I think it is visible in the cinema industry, in the creativity that is expressed through the movies. And that is when the artificial intelligence revolutions comes into play, which we were not prepared for. So it is out of our control, without our consent. Nobody asked us what we wanted, whether we wanted it, and without any warning, right? So without any preparation, what is coming, right? Because we just woke up one morning and ChatGPT was all around us. All the other models were being developed in the speed of light, and we just said, okay, let's see what we can do about that. So from the legal perspective, all this generated a fusion, right? And most importantly, a confusion. So the fusion between the different ways of creating and the shifting of the creative powers to the tools, from humans to tools, from the legal perspective and from the ethical perspective have created this confusion, which is also, which of course law cannot appreciate, right? So from this sense, many authors have felt displaced. Some of the creators have felt, well, it is a great great tool, let's explore it, yet the others felt like, what's going on, right? So what am I in control of? It's a very human question. What do I control? And the fact that we need to control things is also something that, that I think defines us in a way. And it is also something that we have discovered that, again, even creativity, I think with the artificial intelligence, we often ask ourselves, what makes us human? And nowadays, we discover that creativity is not something that makes us, that it is, exclusively ours. It also belongs to the artificial intelligence. And I think these small crises of discovery, that we are not so, special, I think is also one of the things that defines the age of the artificial intelligence, and the sense of displacement is a part of it. And yet, the human control, of course, and yet the human control of movie directors, for example, this is a picture the movie that represents the creative power of the movie industry people. Many times, when it encounters the artificial intelligence, the question is, how much of it is mine? How much of it it represents my creativity? How much my decisions have been reflected in it, and how many of my decisions have actually changed their shape through the process of trying to explain what I want to the generative artificial intelligence. And this is where sort of delusions may come into play, because, well, it is difficult to translate what you have in mind, and even more complicated to translate it to the artificial intelligence. So in this sense, sometimes we can talk about also the process of the delusion of control of many of the creators, which I think is also kind of phase in the development of the human-machine interaction. So, of course, in legal terms, and although you might not believe it, law is also progressing. So we are also, from the legal perspective, experiencing this work in progress to rethink the legal categories, to rethink the legal standards, to rethink the legal rules that that rule the law, that actually, at least on paper, tries to find the right balances, and the balances I'm going to talk about them as well in the short while. Of course, so this is also talking about balances, so about the equilibriums, right? So this is where, again, the tradition of the law comes into clash with the change and our understanding of how we need to adapt. So from a legal perspective, always the question, so what should we do? How do we, again, find the balance, find the equilibrium between different needs, different interests, and where do the artificial intelligence, disruption could be, should be, or must be placed? So, for example, it was already mentioned by one of the speakers, from the perspective of the labor law, the substitution of the actors with the artificial intelligence, with the avatars, or any other tools, raise questions also about the property of the image, right? The ownership of the image of the actors. So we could say that I want, well, Clint Eastwood's way of walking plus Cary Grant's style, and also Tom Cruise's teeth, just to give something. And of course, anything from Brad Pitt, it's also fine and great. And well, and maliciousness of Woody Harrelson is also, that I see that the audience sees it the same way. Raises questions. So if you combine these qualities, if you combine these characteristics, and you have this kind of puzzle-made actor generated by the artificial intelligence, where does it leave the actors? Where does it leave the people who have spent their lives trying to, be someone else? right, credibly. It is also about the crew. It is also about those people who, who move the lights, who do all that dirty work which is not visible behind the scenes, right? So from the legal perspective, this is also something that we talk about, and we try to figure out how could we find the right balance to help them to find alternatives, or actually restructure the whole system so that they would not be left jobless, futureless, but they could be also find their space in this new world. So of course, in all of this, the role of the law is actually looking for the balance. So the rights of people, rights of also those who create, the social interest in fostering human artistic endeavors and technical innovation. It's also about social justice, social welfare, but it is also about the public interest to access to culture and information. So we also have connections. We go back to the Universal Declaration of the Human Rights of the 1948, and we go to the human right to culture, that everyone has a right to freely participate in cultural life of the community, to enjoy the arts, which again, very, very inclusive term, which opens lots of spaces to interpret it, but also the right to protection of the moral and material interests resulting from the scientific, literary, or artistic production, right? So this is also something we need to take into account. One of the things that we were discussing with the organizers, with Frederick especially, he was saying, why don't you also talk about the Artificial Intelligence Act? So it's one of the main legal instruments in the European Union on the artificial intelligence, and we were all kind of wondering how much it is relevant for the artistic world, and it is relevant in the sense that, well, it does not deal with the creativity, it doesn't deal with the authorship, it doesn't deal with the copyright, although it does talk about the levels of the risk. So it talks about, it adapts it looks at the artificial intelligence through the harms it can cause, right? But it doesn't, and in this sense, the artistic works fall under a category that asks for transparency, for disclosure, for defense against copyright infringements, but nothing else. And of course, it deals with I had to put Rocky, if I'm talking about the data training, the training data sets for the artificial intelligence, because, well, I said training, give me a movie with training image, and Rocky came on the screen, and I said, da-da-da, da-da-da, and said, okay, so it will reflect the idea of the training. You can see that my cinema references are a bit old, but I think we all share them. So from the legal perspective, the questions move around the training sets, right? So the sets, the data that is used to train general artificial intelligence, and whether these training sets respect the copyright law. Okay. Yet on the creativity and again the protection of rights of the authors, this law is not talking about, so it is silent on it. And yet we do need to think about the solution to this conundrum, right? So the emergence of the artificial intelligence, disruption of the artificial intelligence, and the static categories of law. So here comes the only slide which is not, we still need the movie about, right? Because I found it was very interesting to do this presentation, because I discovered that you put any word whatsoever and there is a movie about it. Really, and I was like, okay, but this is the movie that we are missing, and it's also something to think about, right? We still miss a movie on the Creative Commons and different kinds of licenses that we could think of to, on the one hand, recognize the authorship of the humans, but also give a due to those who have developed artificial intelligence and who have also could also claim their part in the creative processes. The second idea is also related to creation, to creating together, right? So we do not have the formulas to recognize artificial intelligence role in the creative outcome. It's, from the legal perspective, the only creator is a human being. But maybe we need to change this, and how we could change this is another question. It is also the question of taxes, about the taxation system. So I think this is the example when the tax reality is very far away from the representation of taxes in the movies, because as you can see, well, all the representations are pretty far away from how I understand taxes. Well, from something that looks very Tarantino-ish to, love and taxes. Well, I think it's someone who haven't ever filled the tax declaration in his or her life. So talking about the taxation is another thing that we need to talk about. And we need to, and to think about taxes is also to think about what do we want to privilege, what do we want to encourage? Purely human creativity, or all those different forms of creativity that general artificial intelligence is pushing forward. It is also about the sandboxes. So this is something that the Artificial Intelligence Act introduces. So these environments when you can experiment and to see whether the legal norms could function. So I think another idea is to borrow this concept and try to figure out whether these different ways of co-creating, co-sharing creative endeavors, co-building something together with the general artificial intelligence could lead to some new rules, new norms, new ideas on how we could approach it from the legal perspective, again, with the aim to be just, to be fair, and to be, well, to balance all those different interests that are being represented in these settings. So also another thing we need to do is to rethink the duration of the copyright. For example, it is so the time question, right? 70 years after the author's death, it's too much. So again, this is something we need to think. And also there are big questions on the table. That is the international community, the involvement of global south and not making decisions as a global north. So these are huge and big ethical questions where the industry of the creative arts has a say, should have a say, and should be an equal participant. And it's also the big negative sides of it all, right? So the questions related to the manipulation, the question related to the vulnerabilities, the question related to the misinformation, abuses of power, and so on and so forth. Because, of course, when we talk about the general artificial intelligence, for the time being, as of today, we are talking about the big tech companies. We are talking about the big powers. We're talking about those whom more often than not are considered to be not parties who want to negotiate, right? They usually set the rules and either you take it or you leave it, but usually you take it because you do not have alternatives. So of course there is a question for the rest of the society, whether how it all impacts, well, the people who watch the movies, the people who, the citizens, like any one of us. And of course, when I was preparing this talk, I was thinking about, well, the only party in the cinema industry that we do not plan yet to substitute are the audience, is the audience, right? Right? It's still a human audience. So what does it mean for the way we treat it and for the impact the general artificial intelligence has on it through these artistic creations? So, of course, whether we want to keep our audience only human or whether we want to change anything, well, this is something we need to talk about in the future. In the meantime, I again wanted to thank you for being with me this morning, and I will leave the floor to other speakers who talks will surely also inspire and provoke your thoughts maybe more than this one. And it was just a small warm-up before the real thing. Enjoy the festival.
Thank you very much, Migle. Maybe we have 5 minutes for some questions. If there's any question here in the room for Migle, Rock.
I didn't know that I had questions, sorry.
Thank you for this very inspiring talk. And I have a question regarding, maybe it's too early for us to know how well is law doing regarding AI, but we've had like 30 years of experience of law around digitalization. And my question is, how well do you think we have done in these 30 years since we have the first digital images, sounds, texts?
I answer, no? Thank you very much. It's nice to meet you in person because I usually saw you on the screen during the meetings. It is a very, very complicated question, of course, and it depends. Well, many lawyers would. There is no right answer. And I think nowadays what I usually think about is, have 30 years of digitalization, and now we have the explosion of artificial intelligence. So we had time to learn, right? But it looks like that we haven't learned anything. This is like my critical vision of the question. So law still, many times falls from the sky, says, "Oops, oh, what's happening?" So let's see, let's wait, and let's see when the things more or less settle down, and then we'll intervene, right? But I'm also very, very critical to the idea that law is slow. Yes, law is slow, and it has to be slow, because law is not technology. We should not follow the speed of technology, because law is a different thing. Law is a democratic process. Law is negotiations. Law is balance. Law is looking for the agreement, and it takes time. So if we come after, well, there is a reason why. And, well, I don't see ways to change it. So I don't know whether I'm answering your question, but this is just my thoughts on this. Thank you very much anyway.
Thank you for the inspiring presentation. I really like the film references. Just one comment about the final comment you made about the audience, that we care about the audience and that the final recipient is the audience. The thing is that we've experiencing the fact that the audience may be artificial intelligence, because it also consumes all the productions, and then it is trained all that on those productions. So there is this Ouroboros effect that some people have said it may lead to a collapse, but other people say that it actually we need to rethink about society and laws. And what happens when the production is by AI, the audience is AI, the comments and the discussion is made by bots, maybe, and there are several ways humans may be interacting with all this system. I just wanted to throw this to you.
Well, you hit me, so And well, that's very true what you're saying. So there is this risk of, well, at the end of the day, eliminating the human factor of the equation. And it is true that if you start to create things having in mind that they could be used by generative artificial intelligence to generate other works, you lose the grasp that you're actually, at least theoretically, at least until today, we were creating for the humans, right? So I think this is a very, very interesting question to think about, how the fact that your works could be used by the generative artificial intelligence and focus only on that could influence these works. And I was also thinking that, well, if that is the case, so in 20 years' time, Frederick and the crew will organize here the human-made movie festival where there is no artificial intelligence, right? And as today we have this handmade, special, unique stuff, we could also move the same to the human-made cinema arts and many, many other things. And the question is whether we really want it, right? Because, well, I think the human factor is a very important thing to keep as a central part of the equation. Thank you for your question.